Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm doing a top lane tier list for patch 13.19, so if you enjoy the content, like and subscribe, and let's get into it. To begin with, this was a fairly small patch, not a huge amount of adjustments went on. This is the last patch before Worlds, so all the teams are going to be playing on this. So most of the changes were focused towards competitive, buffing, ultimates, globals, and then a couple of solo queue outliers which were performing really well on the patch. So let's cover them. Gangplank is the first champion which I want to talk about. He got slightly buffed. His ult CD has gone down by 10 seconds at all ranks. His movement speed on his ult upgrade, raised morale, has gone up from 30% to 40%. And then the Death's Daughter slow has gone from 60% to 75% for 1 second. So overall, these are very limited changes. They don't really affect Gangplank until later on into the game. You're not really using his ult off CD either, so they don't really do a huge amount. Gangplank still is going to stay in the A tier, just slightly higher up. He's going to perform a bit better because he's at the end of the day are just strict buffs. So moving slightly up. The next things I want to talk about are a couple of nerfs towards certain champions. So Briar got nerfed this patch, but she's performing better in general. More people have dropped the champion, and then the people who enjoy the champion have picked her up and put more games into playing her. So her overall win rate has gone up, even with a bunch of nerfs. As this happens, more and more people will drop off the champion, and then the people who are more proficient at her, willing to put the games in, will stay on it. So it wouldn't surprise me if she raises up into the C, possibly B tier, but they're mainly focusing around her jungle balance and probably don't want her to become too much of a top lane champion. So for the moment, she's going to stay in the D tier. Her nerfs weren't particularly big. She had a bunch of quality of life changes as well, just to help her out. Her ult now pings when she's on the way. She now has a rage bar. Just overall nice things to play with and as Briar. So champ's going to stay in the D tier. Make sure you're going with things like your Gore Drinker or your Stride Breaker, Cleaver, Sturks. All these items are really good on her. I know there are some lethality builds around with like Hail of Blades. I'd recommend looking into them before really picking them up. And I would recommend running bruiser builds in the top lane, but they do work. You can have lethality options, so it is there if you want to. The next champ is Renekton. He was a fringe S tier pick, so I'm going to move him down into the A tier. He lost 4 MR, so it makes a couple of his matchups which do AP damage a bit weaker. He's going to definitely struggle into things like Malphite, Kennen, Gwen. If these champs are picked against him, Jax does a significant amount of AP damage, so he'll also struggle in that matchup a bit more. But overall, it just hurts his blind ability. Not a huge nerf, but as he was kind of in between S A tier, he's just going to move down to the A tier. If you're building him correctly though, he's still definitely an S tier pick. Just not as bindable as he once was. You do want to pick up that Stride Breaker more often. I know a lot of people still go Bork and Gore Drinker, but Stride is really, really strong on this champion. Of course, you can pick things up like your Shojin. I know people still go Cleaver, even when Shojin has a significantly higher win rate. But yeah, Shojin, Cleaver, Sturks, Death Stance, all these items really good for Renekton. Makes him scale a lot better with a lot of cooldown if you're going things like Lucids, and you can kind of turn him into a very caster-heavy champion where you're using your abilities a lot more rather than just autoing people down. Really helps with stacking up Cleaver as well if you're getting a lot of ability rotations in. So overall, Renekton, still a decent champion. Not as bad as he was in the past, where he was really gatekept by the fact that he didn't scale very well. He definitely does have a lot more scaling with his kit. Wouldn't call him a true scaler though. He still does fall off over the game goes on, but definitely more options there. Not a bad champion, just not S tier worthy, as a lot of these other champions can either beat him or just have stronger kind of like potential within their kits. Moving on, Reksai is going to be moving down to the B tier. She could honestly possibly be moving down to the C tier. It really depends on where the changes fully put her. Overall, they are just nerfs towards her sustain. Her passive is taking a big hit. Really hurts with her levels as well, which is why she was quite strong in the top lane alongside second win D Shield. It was really hard to move Reksai. Her Q lost a bit of damage early, so her ability to trade early on is going to be a lot harder. Also hurts her ability to last hit minions. On top of this, she also lost a bit of movement speed, so her chase potential is a bit weaker. Overall, these are just things which are going to hurt Reksai. The compensation buff of a bit more damage on W is not going to be enough, and I imagine we'll buff her back up next patch, as that was a huge swing towards Reksai, and her win rate did take a massive hit. LeBlanc is going to be added to the top lane tier list into the F tier. She has been gutted this patch. AD LeBlanc is no more. I would recommend picking AP items up if you're still going the static route, but I wouldn't even recommend going the static route anymore. They nerfed the item, they nerfed the benefits it had on LeBlanc with the attack speed ratio. Her AD's gone down, so autoing is now not as beneficial as it used to be. Compensated with 10% AP ratio, not going to do enough though, so I would just recommend going like a Luden's, Shadow Flame or Rabadon's, Void Staff, Sonya's, Banshee's pick up. All these items are definitely going to be a lot better as the AP ratio increased, but LeBlanc AP was kind of weak beforehand, so I don't see this really pushing LeBlanc into a good spot. There might be AP LeBlanc top, but there is a high chance I end up removing her down the road when her play rate eventually falls off, as more people realise that AD LeBlanc doesn't really work that well anymore. And then the last champ which I wanted to talk about is Vayne. Vayne is going to move up to the A tier. She is the last adjustment on this tier list. I feel like Vayne has been a long time coming as moving up. She has a really strong build with static, or I believe Storm Razor. I think some people are going that. And then Triforce gives her nice durability alongside the Q-Max. You can really make value out of the Sheen proc and the damage you can do through that. Overall, it just gives her a lot more benefits where she was weak before in her wave clear, her durability, and it works quite well. You can finish this off, of course, with things like BT, Shield Bow, Phantom Dancer. These are all decent options. You could probably slot in a Storm Razor there if you really want it. GA, not a bad purchase. Randuin's obviously cheaper, can work with a champ like Vayne, but with this build, you are definitely looking to be a lot more AD pickup heavy. You do need the items to really do a lot of damage, whereas on hit, you could kind of just pick up like a Borg, a Kraken, and then go Ginsu's, and then you were kind of set, as your damage was kind of carried by the fact that you did a lot of percentage max health, and that would scale throughout the game, so you could pick up more durability items such as like Anathemas, Randuins, items like these. Of course, Vayne, not a bad champion if you're going on hit, but definitely a lot more better if you're if you are picking up the Sheen and going a lot more AD focused with Q-Max, as they did nerf the late game W. So that's kind of what I want to talk about with Vayne. Overall, not a huge amount of shifts in the top lane tier list. A couple of champions probably will get adjusted next patch. We are definitely going to see a bunch of changes with starter items receiving a big amount of buffs, nerfs towards junglers, so it makes the overall game tempo probably a bit slower. So scalers like your Kales and stuff will probably be pretty strong. I imagine with more health on a lot of these starter items as well, it makes a lot of weaker top laners, which really relied on just having to play safe, a bit stronger, as they now have a bit more health to play with. Of course, starter items being weaker because Doran's items are better, or starter items are better. It's going to hurt champs which went like Sapphire Crystal into Lost Chapter Rush, and champs like Mundo, which oftentimes started Ruby Crystal. Gangplank, I believe, started Longsword. These will all be nerfed in comparison to just starting a Doran's item, a starter item. I always call them Doran's items because like Doran's ring, Doran's play, stuff like that. Of course, we hopefully will see some other adjustments. I know we've already seen Ziggs and Zed changes, and we'll see the changes next Monday. Hopefully, just a big amount of adjustments, as they really should start focusing on solo queue now that the Worlds kind of patch is Worlds patch has already been done and sorted. We might see nerfs towards Aatrox. I know he's really strong at the moment, alongside Poppy, who is also really good at the moment into a lot of the matchups, but they might just hit at a couple of other things or just buff up some of the weaker champions. We get the Cassante update next patch, which would be good. The champ's in a pretty bad spot for solo queue at the moment. You have to put a lot of the games into really being proficient on this champion, and only a lot of the elite players tend to do this, whereas a lot of like lower elo players and mid elo players don't put enough games into him, and that's why his win rate is quite deflated within low elo. Alongside that, maybe we'll see some of Sejuani adjustments, as she's quite gate-kept by pro, or was gate-kept by pro, now pretty weak in solo queue at the moment, not doing too hot in the top lane or the jungle, and then maybe some other adjustments towards other champions which have been kind of pro-jailed for a bit, and could definitely do with a bit of love, maybe something towards Wukong. Overall, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.